The Vexari Empire had conquered 412 worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their ships moved like dark clouds through space, blocking out starlight wherever they went. Commander Zerath stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion and looked at the blue and green planet spinning slowly before him. His scales shifted from purple to deep red, a sign of confidence among his kind. "This is Earth," his science officer said. "Home to the species called humans. They have primitive technology, basic space travel only, no shields, no plasma weapons. They will fall within 3 rotations of their sun." Zerath clicked his sharp teeth together in what passed for a smile among the Vexari. "Begin the invasion. Standard protocol. Destroy their military centers first, then their governments. After that, we collect the survivors for the slave markets." The Vexari had done this many times before. They were efficient. They were brutal. They had never failed. Thousands of landing craft descended through Earth's atmosphere like metal rain. The humans fought back with their simple weapons, their missiles and bullets. Some Vexari soldiers fell, but not many. The humans had courage, the Vexari noticed. They did not run when they should have. They stood and fought even when their weapons did nothing against Vexari armor. "Interesting," Zerath said as he watched the reports come in. "They are not intelligent enough to surrender." Within 2 weeks, the Vexari controlled the major cities. Human governments collapsed. Military bases burned. The Empire had won just as it always did. But then something strange began to happen. Vexari patrols started to disappear. A squad of 12 soldiers would go out to collect food or hunt down resistance fighters, and they would never come back. At first, the commanders thought it was nothing. Small groups of humans hiding in buildings, setting traps, normal resistance activity. Then the bodies started appearing. The first one was a Vexari soldier named Krex. His patrol had gone into what the humans called a forest. Krex came stumbling out 3 days later. His armor was gone. His weapons were gone. He had been walking without food or water for 60 hours. His scales had turned gray from exhaustion. He collapsed at the edge of a Vexari camp and died before the medics could reach him. "What happened to him?" the camp commander asked. The medic looked up with confusion in his yellow eyes. "He walked himself to death, sir. His body simply gave out. Heart failure from extreme physical stress." "That makes no sense. The patrol had supplies for 10 days. "I do not understand it either, sir, but there is something else." The medic pointed to marks on Krex's body. "These are cuts, small ones, not meant to kill, and these burns on his feet come from walking too long without rest." The commander felt something cold move through his chest. It was not a feeling he was familiar with. The Vexari were apex predators on their home world. They did not feel fear. But this was something new. More patrols disappeared. More soldiers were found dead from exhaustion. The survivors told stories that the Vexari commanders did not want to believe. "They followed us," one soldier said. His voice was shaking. His scales had lost all color. "The humans, they followed us for 4 days. We ran as fast as we could, but they kept coming. They never stopped. We would hide and rest, and then we would see them again. Walking, always walking toward us. They did not run. They did not need to. They just walked and walked and walked." The commander leaned forward. "Why did you not fight them?" "We tried, sir. We killed some of them, but more came, and they did not stop. They followed our trail. They tracked us through rivers and over mountains. When we slept, they caught up. When we ran, they followed. We could not escape them." "How many humans were following you?" The soldier's eyes went wide. "3, sir, just 3. News of the strange human tactics spread through the Vexari forces. Soldiers began to refuse patrol duty. They said the forests were cursed. They said the humans were not natural creatures. Commander Zerath received the reports with growing anger. "This is foolishness," he said. "We have conquered hundreds of species. Humans are weak. Their bodies are soft. They have no claws, no venom, no natural weapons. How are they killing our soldiers? His science officer pulled up data on a screen. Commander, I have been studying the human species. I believe I understand what is happening. Explain. Humans evolved on a harsh planet. They were not the strongest or the fastest animals. They did not have sharp teeth or thick hide, but they developed a hunting technique that made them one of the most dangerous predators on their world. What technique? The science officer's scales turned pale blue, the color of fear. Persistence hunting, Commander. Humans would choose an animal and follow it, not chase it, follow it. The animal would run away and the humans would walk after it. The animal would run again and the humans would keep walking. They would follow for hours, days sometimes. The animal would run until it could not run anymore, until its heart gave out or its legs failed. And then the humans would simply walk up to it and kill it. Zerath stared at the screen. That is impossible. No creature can walk for days without rest. Humans can, sir. Their bodies are designed for it. They sweat to cool themselves. They have efficient hearts and lungs. They can walk or run for longer than any species we have ever encountered. They are not fast, but they are relentless. They simply do not stop. The commander felt that cold feeling again. You are telling me that humans are persistence predators? Yes, sir. And I believe they have remembered this ancient skill. They are hunting our soldiers the same way their ancestors hunted animals millions of years ago. Zerath looked at the blue planet on his view screen. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he wondered if the Empire had made a terrible mistake. The forest was dark and wet. Vexari Sergeant Morth led his squad of 8 soldiers through the thick trees. They were searching for a human resistance camp that scouts had spotted 3 days ago. The mission should have been simple. Find the camp, kill the fighters, report back. But Morth had heard the stories. He had seen the dead soldiers brought back to camp. He had watched strong warriors die from exhaustion, their bodies broken not by weapons but by endless walking. Stay alert, he told his squad. Watch the trees. A young soldier named Kith walked beside him. Sergeant, do you believe what they say about the humans, that they follow you until you die? I believe what I see, Morth said, and I have seen too many dead soldiers to ignore the stories. They found the resistance camp by midday. It was empty. The humans had left recently. Cooking fires were still warm. They knew we were coming, Morth said. We returned to base. That was when the first shot came. It hit the soldier at the back of the line. The bullet did not kill him, but it went through his leg armor. He fell with a scream. Cover, Morth shouted. The squad scattered behind trees and rocks. More shots came from somewhere in the forest. The Vexari could not see their attackers. Return fire, Morth ordered. His soldiers fired their plasma weapons into the trees. Branches burned. Smoke filled the air, but they hit nothing. The shooting stopped. Morth waited. His hearts were beating fast. The wounded soldier was groaning on the ground. 2 others dragged him behind a large rock. Can you see them? Morth asked. No, Sergeant, nothing on scanners. Minutes passed, then an hour. The forest was quiet. We move, Morth said. Back to base. Kith, you carry the wounded one. They began to walk. The wounded soldier slowed them down, but they made good progress. By evening, they had covered 10 kilometers. They stopped to rest beside a stream. The wounded soldier was pale. His leg was infected despite the medical treatment they had given him. He cannot walk much longer, Kith said. Morth looked at the dark forest around them. We rest for 2 hours, then we continue. He posted guards and tried to sleep. It did not come easily. A guard woke him after what felt like only minutes. Sergeant, look. Morth stood and looked where the guard was pointing. On a hill about 300 meters away, a figure stood in the moonlight. A human. It was just standing there watching them. Should we shoot? The guard asked. At this distance, in the dark, no, save your power cells. The human stood there for a long time. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Morth felt the cold fear return. "We leave now," he said. "Everyone up." They walked through the night. The wounded soldier had to be carried. By dawn, he was dead. Morth left the body. They could not carry it anymore. "How much farther to base?" Kith asked. 40 kilometers. They walked. The sun rose and made the air hot and thick. The Vexari were not built for this kind of heat. Their scales needed cool, dry air. Soon they were all breathing hard, their movements slow and clumsy. At midday, they stopped to rest in the shade of a cliff. Kith was on watch. He came running back. "Sergeant, they are coming." Morth climbed to the top of the cliff and looked. 3 humans were walking toward them across a grassy field. They were not running. They were not hiding. They were just walking, steady and sure. "How far?" "Maybe 2 kilometers. "We can outrun them," one soldier said. "We are faster." "For how long?" Morth said. "They do not stop, we do." He watched the humans for a moment. They were wearing simple clothes. Each one carried a pack on their back. They had knives and small guns, nothing that could threaten a Vexari soldier at range. "We fight," Morth said. "We kill them here and end this." The squad set up a defensive position. They had good cover behind the rocks of the cliff. When the humans came within range, the Vexari opened fire. The humans dropped to the ground and crawled into a ditch. Plasma bolts burned the air above them. The Vexari kept firing, but the humans stayed in their cover. They did not fight back. They did not advance. They just waited. "We are wasting power," Morth said. "Cease fire." The standoff lasted for hours. The sun moved across the sky. The Vexari grew tired and thirsty. They had water, but not much. As the sun began to set, the humans crawled out of the ditch and started walking again. Not toward the Vexari, but around them, circling to the east. "They are cutting off our path to base," Morth realized. He gave the order to move. The squad ran east, trying to get ahead of the humans. They ran for an hour until their lungs burned and their legs shook. Then they stopped to rest. They looked back. The humans were there, walking, 3 dark shapes in the fading light. "How?" Kith gasped. "We ran, they walked. How are they still so close?" Morth understood now. The humans did not need to be fast. They just needed to keep coming. Every time the Vexari stopped to rest, the humans closed the gap. Every time the Vexari ran, they burned energy they could not replace. The humans could do this forever. The Vexari could not. "We push through the night," Morth said. "We do not stop until we reach base." They walked through the darkness. One soldier fell and did not get up. Another collapsed at dawn and begged his comrades to leave him. They did. There was no other choice. By the second morning, only 4 soldiers remained. Morth, Kith, and 2 others. They were staggering more than walking. Their scales had turned gray. Their eyes were dull. Kith looked over his shoulder. The humans were still there, maybe half a kilometer back, still walking. "They are not even tired," Kith said. There was despair in his voice. "Look at them, they are talking to each other, laughing." Morth did not look back. He could not bear to. They saw the Vexari base in the distance. Just 5 more kilometers. They could make it. They had to make it. One of the soldiers fell. His hearts had given out. He was dead before he hit the ground. 3 left now. They ran. It was all they could do. They ran toward the base, toward safety, toward the end of this nightmare. Behind them, the humans broke into a jog. Morth reached the base first. Guards ran out to help him. He collapsed inside the gate and looked back. Kith was 100 meters behind, stumbling forward. The 3rd soldier was farther back. The humans caught the 3rd soldier. Morth watched them surround him. They did not shoot him. They did not stab him. They simply stood there as he fell to his knees, his body finally giving out. Kith made it through the gate. He fell beside Morth, barely breathing. The humans stopped at the edge of the base's weapons range. They stood there for a long moment, looking at the Vexari who watched from the walls. Then one of them smiled and waved. They turned and walked back into the forest, slow and steady, as if they had all the time in the world. Because they did. Commander Zerath read the reports with growing horror. The human resistance was not fighting like any enemy the Empire had faced before. They did not make stands. They did not defend positions. They did not try to hold territory. They hunted. Across the planet, Vexari patrols were being followed, worn down and destroyed. Not by superior firepower or clever tactics, but by humans who simply refused to stop walking. "We have lost 400 soldiers in the last 10 days, his adjutant reported. Most of them died from exhaustion, heart failure, system collapse. They were walked to death. Zerath's scales shifted through colors he had never displayed before. Colors that had no name in his language because his people had never needed words for them. "This cannot continue," he said. "Order all ground forces to stay within base perimeters. No more patrols." "Sir, if we do that, the humans will control the countryside. We will be trapped in our own camps." "I know, but we are losing soldiers faster than we can replace them. The humans have found our weakness." And what a weakness it was. The Vexari were ambush predators by nature. They evolved on a cold, rocky world where the best strategy was to hide, strike quickly, and drag prey back to a safe den. They were fast in short bursts, deadly in close combat, but they could not run for long. They could not walk for days. They had never needed to. Humans could. Humans were built for it. Every part of their strange bodies was designed for endless travel. Their long legs, their upright posture, their ability to sweat instead of pant, their stubborn, relentless minds that refused to give up. The galaxy had never seen anything like them. Zerath called a meeting of his officers. "We need to change our approach," he said. "We cannot fight the humans on the ground. We will use our air power, burn the forests where they hide, destroy their food supplies, starve them out." It seemed like a good plan. The Vexari had complete control of the skis. Their fighters could strike anywhere on the planet within minutes. They burned millions of acres of forest. They destroyed farms and food stores. They blasted human settlements from orbit. The humans did not starve. They scattered into the wilderness and lived off the land. They ate things the Vexari found disgusting. Roots, insects, animals, even each other in the worst times. But they did not die. And they did not stop hunting. Now the attacks came at night. Humans would walk for miles through destroyed landscapes to reach Vexari bases. They would cut through fences, disable sensors, and slip inside. They would kill a few soldiers, damage equipment, and disappear before the alarm was even raised. Then they would wait for the Vexari to chase them. "Sir, we have detected movement near the northern perimeter." The officer's voice was tight with fear. Zerath looked at the display. Heat signatures, 7 of them. Humans, probably. "Send a drone." The drone flew out and found the humans easily. They were not hiding. They were standing in an open field, looking up at the drone with calm expressions. One of them held up a sign. The Vexari computer translated the words, "We can do this forever. Can you?" Zerath stared at the screen. The humans were not afraid of the drone. They were not afraid of the Vexari base or its weapons. They knew that the Vexari would either stay inside their walls or come out and be hunted. They had all the patience in the world. Zerath ordered the drone to fire. The missiles streaked down and exploded where the humans had been standing. When the smoke cleared, the field was empty. The humans had scattered into the darkness. An hour later, sensors detected them again. They were walking toward the base, spread out in a wide line. The Vexari fired from the walls, but the humans kept moving, using every piece of cover. One by one, they crossed the kill zone and reached the outer fence. That night, 12 Vexari soldiers died in their sleep. Their throats were cut with simple metal knives. The humans left the same message written in blood on the walls. We can't do this forever. Zerath began to understand something terrible. The Vexari Empire had conquered 400 worlds by being the apex predators. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than any species they had encountered. But humans were not like other species. They had evolved alongside predators far more dangerous than the Vexari: lions, bears, wolves, creatures that could kill humans easily in a fair fight. So humans did not fight fair. They ran, they hid, they waited, and then they followed their prey until it could not run anymore. The Vexari had awakened something ancient in the human mind, something that remembered how to hunt in the old ways, something patient and tireless and absolutely without mercy. Zerath sent a message to the Empire's high command: Earth cannot be held. Request permission to withdraw. The response came within hours: permission denied. The Empire does not retreat. Hold the planet or die trying. Zerath looked at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the blue and green planet spinning beneath his ship. For the first time in his life, Commander Zerath began to pray. 2 months into the invasion, the Vexari controlled only 3 large bases and a few dozen smaller camps. Everything else belonged to the humans. Not because they had won great battles, not because they had superior weapons, but because every time the Vexari stepped outside their walls, the walking started. Human resistance groups had spread across the planet. They communicated with each other through methods the Vexari could not track or intercept. They shared information about Vexari weaknesses, about their need for rest, about their fear of the long hunt. A new phrase spread through the human resistance. The Vexari eventually learned to translate it: the chase begins. It meant that a hunt was starting. It meant that somewhere, a Vexari unit had made the mistake of leaving its base. It meant that humans were already following, already walking, already counting the hours until their prey collapsed. The phrase became a terror to the Vexari. They heard it whispered in the night. They saw it painted on walls. They found it written in the dirt beside the bodies of their fallen soldiers. The chase begins. Back on the homeworld, the Vexari Empire was facing something it had never experienced before: public doubt. Reports from Earth were spreading through the population. Stories of soldiers walked to death by a primitive species. Stories of an enemy that could not be stopped because it simply would not stop. Other conquered species heard the stories too. They began to whisper among themselves: if humans could resist the Empire, maybe others could too. Zerath received new orders: maintain the occupation at all costs. The Empire's reputation depends on it. He read the orders and laughed bitterly. The Empire wanted him to hold a planet full of creatures who could hunt any living thing to death, with soldiers who could not run for more than an hour without collapsing. He was beginning to understand that this invasion had been a mistake from the very beginning. 6 months after the invasion began, the Vexari Empire sent reinforcements. 50,000 fresh soldiers arrived in transport ships, ready to crush the human resistance once and for all. Commander Zerath watched them land with a mixture of hope and dread. Hope because he desperately needed more troops, dread because he knew what awaited them. The new commander was Admiral Vrex, a legendary warrior who had conquered 30 worlds for the Empire. He walked off his shuttle with confidence in every step, his scales gleaming with the deep gold color of supreme arrogance. "Commander Zerath," he said, his voice filled with contempt, "I have reviewed your reports. I am not impressed. You have allowed a primitive species to make fools of the Empire." "Admiral, with respect, the humans are not what we expected. They have a capability that—" "Silence! I know about your so-called persistence hunting." Vrex clicked his teeth in dismissal. "It is nothing. A trick that works against frightened soldiers. It will not work against disciplined troops under my command." Zerath wanted to argue, but he knew it would be pointless. Vrex would have to learn the hard way. The admiral organized a massive sweep operation. 20,000 soldiers would move across the largest continent in a coordinated pattern, clearing out human resistance and establishing new bases every 50 kilometers. There would be no retreat, no hesitation, and no mercy. When the humans see our full strength, they will surrender, Vrex declared. They are cowards who pick off isolated patrols. They cannot stand against a real army. The operation began on a clear morning. Thousands of soldiers marched out of the main base, their armor gleaming in the sunlight. Vehicles carried supplies and heavy weapons. Fighters flew overhead, ready to provide air support. For the first 3 days, everything went according to plan. The army advanced steadily, encountering only minor resistance. Human scouts watched from a distance but did not engage. On the 4th day, the walking started. It began with small groups of humans appearing at the edges of the formation, just walking, keeping pace with the army. The soldiers tried to shoot them, but they stayed just out of effective range. When vehicles were sent to chase them, they scattered into terrain the vehicles could not follow. By the 5th day, there were hundreds of humans following the army. They moved in shifts, some walking while others rested. They never attacked, but they never stopped. They were always there, just at the edge of vision. Admiral Vrex was furious. "Ignore them," he ordered. "They cannot harm us." But they could harm the Vexari in ways the admiral did not understand. The soldiers grew nervous. They could not sleep knowing the humans were out there, watching. They began to make mistakes, to jump at shadows, to fire their weapons at nothing. On the 7th day, a supply convoy was attacked. The humans did not try to capture the supplies. They simply destroyed them and disappeared. Now the army was running low on food and water. "We push forward," Vrex commanded. "There is a supply depot at the next base site." They reached the site on the 8th day. There was no depot. The humans had burned it 3 days earlier. Now the army was in trouble. They were running low on everything. The soldiers were exhausted from 8 days of marching, and the humans were still following, their numbers growing every day. On the 9th day, Vrex made a decision that would destroy his army. He ordered a forced march to reach the coast, where ships could bring supplies. The march was 100 kilometers. The Vexari could cover that distance in 2 days if they pushed hard. The humans did not let them rest. Every time the army stopped, attackers would appear from multiple directions. They did not try to kill many soldiers. They just kept the army moving, awake, exhausted. On the 2nd day of the march, soldiers began to collapse. Medics could not keep up with the cases. Hearts gave out. Bodies simply stopped working. The humans picked off stragglers, those who fell behind, too tired to continue. They did not kill them quickly. They walked them deeper into the wilderness and left them to die alone, far from any help. Admiral Vrex refused to believe what was happening. "This is not possible," he kept saying. "We are the conquerors of the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by walking." But they were being defeated. Every hour the army grew smaller. Every hour more soldiers fell and did not get up. On the 3rd day, Vrex called for evacuation. Shuttle after shuttle descended to pick up survivors. The humans attacked the landing zones with everything they had, destroying ships on the ground, killing soldiers as they tried to board. Of the 20,000 soldiers who had marched out so proudly, fewer than 8,000 made it back to the main base. Admiral Vrex was not among them. His body was found 3 days later, 50 kilometers from the evacuation site. He had walked himself to death trying to escape, with a group of humans following just 100 meters behind. The news of the disaster spread across the galaxy. The mighty Vexari Empire had sent its best admiral with a massive army, and he had been walked to death by primitive humans. Other species began to openly talk about rebellion. If humans could do this, what else was possible? Commander Zerath was placed in charge of the remaining forces on Earth. He had fewer than 30,000 soldiers left, scattered across a planet full of enemies who never stopped, never rested, and never forgot. He sent one final message to the Empire: recommend immediate withdrawal from Earth. The humans cannot be conquered by conventional means. Continued occupation will result in the loss of all remaining forces. This time, the High Command did not immediately refuse. They were beginning to understand that something unprecedented was happening on this small blue planet. The humans had found the Empire's weakness, and they were not going to let it go. In the forests and mountains and plains of Earth, the resistance fighters celebrated their victory, but they did not stop walking. They knew the war was not over yet. Messages spread through the human networks: keep moving, keep hunting, they will break before we do. It was not a boast, it was a simple statement of fact. Humans had been walking for millions of years, they could walk for millions more. The Vexari could not. The final days of the Vexari occupation of Earth came not with a great battle, but with a simple truth that could no longer be denied. Commander Zerath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and watched the last of his ground forces evacuate. The shuttles rose from the planet's surface like frightened birds, carrying soldiers who had learned a lesson that would change the galaxy forever. They had learned what it meant to be prey. In the 9 months since the invasion began, the Vexari had lost over 100,000 soldiers. Most of them had not died in combat. They had died from exhaustion, from heart failure, from the simple act of being followed until their bodies gave out. The humans had lost people too, many thousands, but for every human who fell, 10 more stood up to take their place. They had something the Vexari could not match: the ability to keep going no matter what. Zerath's adjutant approached him. "Sir, we have received word from High Command. The formal withdrawal order has been approved. We are to leave Earth and never return." "Never return," Zerath repeated quietly. "I wonder if the Empire has ever issued such an order before." "No, sir, this is the first." Zerath looked at the blue planet one last time. He thought about all the worlds the Empire had conquered, all the species they had enslaved. None of them had done what the humans had done. None of them had remembered how to hunt. "Take us out of orbit," he ordered. "Set course for home." The Eternal Dominion turned away from Earth and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind it, the rest of the fleet followed. The invasion was over. On the surface of Earth, people looked up at the sky and watched the ships disappear. There was celebration, but it was quiet, tired. The humans had won, but the cost had been enormous. Maria Santos stood on a hillside overlooking a valley where one of the great battles had taken place. Not a battle with guns and bombs, but a battle of endurance. She had been part of the group that followed a Vexari column for 11 days, walking them into exhaustion, watching them fall one by one. She was 63 years old. Before the invasion, she had been a marathon runner. When the Vexari came, she had become something else, something older, something her ancestors would have recognized. Her grandson walked up beside her. He was 19, tall and thin, built for distance like she was. "They are really gone?" he asked. "They are gone, but they will tell others what happened here. The galaxy will know what humans can do." "Will other aliens come?" Maria smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Maybe, but I think they will be afraid now. I think they will look at our planet and remember the stories. Remember what happens when humans start walking." The news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Every species that had ever been conquered by the Vexari heard the story. They heard how a primitive species with no advanced weapons had broken the greatest military force in known space. They heard about persistence hunting. Scientists on 100 worlds began to study the human technique. They examined the biology of humans, trying to understand how such soft, weak creatures could do what they did. The answer was always the same: Humans were not weak. They were strong in a way that no other species had ever been. They were strong in their refusal to stop. Within a year, rebellions broke out on a dozen Vexari slave worlds. The rebels did not try to fight the Vexari directly. They used human tactics. They followed, watched, and waited. When Vexari patrols went out, they never came back. The phrase spread across the galaxy, "The chase begins." It became a symbol of hope for oppressed species everywhere. It meant that the hunt was starting. It meant that someone, somewhere, was walking toward their oppressors with patient, relentless determination. The Vexari Empire began to collapse, not from military defeat but from fear. Soldiers refused to serve on occupation duty. Commanders surrendered rather than face the walking death. One by one, the conquered worlds broke free. Historians would later call it the Walking Revolution. It changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 10 years after the failed invasion of Earth, a Vexari diplomatic ship arrived in the solar system. It came alone, broadcasting messages of peace on all frequencies. The humans let it approach. They were not the same species they had been 10 years ago. They had built new technologies, new ships, new weapons, but they had not forgotten the old ways. The Vexari ambassador was named Kith. He had survived the long march under Admiral Vrex. He had been walked to the edge of death and brought back. He had never forgotten the lesson. He stood before the human council in a great hall on Earth. His scales had turned the pale blue of submission. "I come to offer apology," he said. "The Vexari Empire was wrong to invade your world. We have paid for that mistake with everything we had." The human representative was an old woman named Maria Santos. She looked at the Vexari ambassador with eyes that had seen too much death. "Why should we accept your apology?" she asked. "Why should we believe you have changed?" Kith lowered his head. "Because I was there, I know what you are, I know what you can do. The galaxy knows now. We will never forget." Maria was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "We do not want revenge," she said. "We never did. We just wanted to be left alone. But you would not leave us alone. So we showed you what happens when you corner humans. We showed you what happens when you try to catch something that cannot be caught." "You showed us," Kith agreed. "And now the whole galaxy knows. Humans are not prey. Humans are the ones who follow, the ones who never stop, the ones who will walk to the end of the universe to catch what they are hunting." Maria smiled. This time it was not a cold smile. It was the smile of someone who was finally, after many years, allowing herself to hope. "We can be friends," she said, "or we can be something else. The choice is yours." Kith looked at the human council, at the faces of people who had survived the worst his species could throw at them. "Friends," he said, "let us be friends." And so it was done. The Vexari Empire and Earth signed a peace treaty that would last for 1,000 years. The galaxy entered a new age, one where humans were respected and feared in equal measure. Other species came to Earth to learn from the humans. They wanted to understand how to fight like humans fought, how to never give up, how to keep walking no matter what stood in their way. The humans taught them what they could, but they also warned them. Persistence hunting was not just a tactic. It was a way of seeing the world. It meant believing that no obstacle was too great, no enemy too strong, no distance too far. It meant believing that if you just kept moving, kept pushing, kept walking, you would eventually reach your destination. That was the lesson Earth taught the galaxy. Not that humans were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but that they were the most stubborn, the most patient, the most relentless. And in a universe full of dangers, that was worth more than any weapon ever made. Maria Santos died at the age of 94, surrounded by her family. Her last words were a message she had carried with her since the day the Vexari came: keep walking. They carved it on her gravestone, and it became the motto of a species that had learned to never stop, never surrender, and never give up. Keep walking. It was what humans did best, and the galaxy would never forget it.